It's 10 o'clock on the dot, and we wanted to get started with this, what we were deeming it as is our, sports, strength and conditioning, webinar where, we have a really cool chance to kind of talk with some people that we don't always get a chance to talk to, even though we all kind of cross paths a little bit in some way, shape, or form with what we teach our students and what you guys do in the real world. So this is really kind of a neat opportunity that we have, and we're fortunate that Kaiser does have sports teams, and we can kind of see what's going on in that world. So what we have today is we have our health and human performance faculty and students. We have our exercise science faculty and students that are involved in this whole process. So we do have a fairly decent amount of people that are on this current meeting. So that's really kind of cool to see. So I'm Jeff Williams. I'm the University Department Chair for Kaiser's Health and Human Performance Department. And I have the luxury of doing this introduction and saying that we have the Director of Athletics, which is Chris Locke, and he's based out of the flagship campus. And then we have the head baseball coach, which is Brooke Fortis. And then you have the head strength and conditioning coach, which is right in our wheelhouse for what we teach our students, and that's David Padilla. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stefan Diaz. He's been kind of the spearhead for this to kind of lead everybody in the right way and get everybody on board. So Stefan, you want to take it over?
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. So yes, this is like first time we're doing this, and then we're very pleased to have Chris Walker, Brooke, David. So it's a lot of department organizations. So we finally make it through. So Chris, I'm gonna pass to you. If you can please give a quick introduction about yourself, and then we go from there, please.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having all of us on here. While we work in athletics, we're all educators, and so it's always great to get to talk to professors and students and people looking to get into the industry. So, it seems like most of this is geared towards strength and conditioning as far as the majors go. So I'll kind of give a general overview of what I do and kind of how, I see strength and conditioning, sports performance within our department. But obviously, if people have other questions about anything regarding the athletic department or, our field, then I'll be happy to answer those questions at the end. So I've been with Kaiser, or I guess at this campus since 2011. So actually I graduated Florida State in 2002. I did not go directly into athletics. I kind of got sidetracked, I guess, a little bit, and worked in management, retail sales. Went back to school actually to FIU down in Miami. Got my master's degree there in sport management, and actually worked with the athletic department there. I graduated in 2010 with my master's. And then I actually came to this campus in 2011 when it was north. I started here actually. Our department was small. When I say small, they didn't have really. I think they had 2 athletic trainers. One was part-time, one was full-time. We had 12 varsity sports, 3 non-varsity sports. I volunteered, worked in academic advising, admissions, did a lot of stuff with the athletic department, but it wasn't a full-time position. Eventually moved into that, became the assistant AD. And then when Kaiser took over this campus in 2015, I moved into the director of athletics role when Nick Davidson, our director of athletics at the time, went up to Aquinas in Michigan. So since that time, in 2011, we've grown to have 25 varsity sports. We have 6 non-varsity sports. So to give you a comparison with student athletes, back in 2011, we had 345. Now we have right around 800. So we've grown quite a bit, in sports and in overall student athletes. As far as my day-to-day, I obviously oversee the department, which would include compliance, eligibility, academics, sports medicine, strength and conditioning. We have department heads in each of those, so I'm meeting with them to kind of make sure everything is going according to plan. Obviously, there's construction and different things that we're doing here with growth that I have to be involved in as well. But really the big part of what I do and Sport Ice and Padilla, really it's working with students just like you. Our goal is to bring kids in, help them become better people. Sometimes that's academic, driven, and other times that's just being a better person. So a lot of our conversations are just them growing and becoming better people. And each of us have our own way of doing that. You know, and Coach Fordyce talks, he'll talk about from the baseball side, and then when Padilla talks, you know, the weight room and strength and conditioning. But all of us kind of have the same goal, which is to help shape and mold kids into young men and young women. And that's probably the biggest challenge, just because it means so much. You know, as far as our department, we've had a lot of success. We compete in the NAI, which if you're not familiar with that, it's separate. It's separate than the NCAA. NCAA obviously has 3 levels: D1, D2, D3. NAI has 1 level, which is probably most comparable with Division II, in the sense that our rules are pretty similar, talent is similar, and school size. So NAI, it's really most institutions are 1,000 to 7,000 students. It's all spread throughout the country and a few outside of the country. So it's, you know, it's highly competitive. But you know, we've been successful, and I think a lot of that is the culture. And so I think the one thing, if I'm talking to anyone who's interested in getting strength and conditioning, performance, athletic training, is my expectation is that, I mean, you're a coach of your area. I don't hire anyone to be a babysitter. So what I mean by that is, I think the education component is big, but when you get into any role you're going to get into, the human element, dealing with people, dealing with teams, being able to manage large groups, small groups, different personalities, high level, low level, work with coaches on their philosophy, all those things are what makes a strength coach or performance coach successful. And those are probably the most challenging things, just because it requires time, experience, and I think sometimes a lot of humility to be able to go into conversations and deal with kids from different backgrounds. But my expectation is that everyone's on the same page. Everyone holds every kid accountable. You know, I mean, Padilla probably rolls his eyes when I say this because we said it a lot of times, but you know, when they enter the weight room, I expect him to manage that like it's his team. His challenge, though, is he has lots of different teams, lots of different objectives. So while Brooke may be dealing with a baseball team with one common goal and objective on the field, a strength coach, obviously, or performance coach has different challenges because, you know, swimming, track and field, basketball, football, they all have different peaks and valleys and different things that they're working on. So you got to switch gears pretty quickly, but you're managing those kids and you're dealing with them. And I think one of the biggest things that has helped us to succeed is we've grown with our strength and conditioning program. And one of the big things I think with strength and conditioning is it's that mental wall that people have to get through. We have strength and conditioning programs that start 6 a.m. They go all the way through the evening and night. And there's a lot of kids that may not want to be there. They don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. to work out, or they may be, you know, coming off an injury with rehab, or there may be something going on that just they're not motivated, but your job is to get through to them and get them motivated. You've got different levels of kids that are, you know, some that are starters and maybe they're trying to get a professional contract, and others that are on the backwards end of the career and they're just going to graduate and move on. So there's a lot of challenges there, but you got to motivate them all the same. You got to hold them accountable. You've got to communicate with the strength and conditioning staff, with the athletic trainers, with the coaches, to make sure everyone's on the same page. So it's a challenging position, but I think it's also rewarding because you'll connect with different people. You know, especially with this degree within, you know, Kaiser, I think there's a lot of kids that are on teams that are going to make sports performance and strength and conditioning their career. And so not only are they just working out, or not only are they trying to get better, but they're also potentially going to do this for the rest of their lives. So it's a cool aspect of the job, I think, that some other departments don't get to necessarily do. But you know, I think it's important for me, not only for the performance, but really also for the injury prevention side. I mean, I'm big on my philosophy, and just to go back a little bit, when I first graduated and I was first moving into to what I thought was going to be my career, I was looking to go into physical therapy and rehab. I got hurt in high school. I worked, you know, hard to get back, you know, on the court, and actually worked for 2 years in a hospital with the rehab department. Ended up kind of switching gears and going in a different direction with my academics. But my philosophy always been rooted in when you have a successful team, part of it's bigger, faster, stronger, but a lot of it's health. So a lot of it is how many games you can play. Can you play at the top level? So there's a lot of, if you ask different people, a lot of times it's how big are you? How fast are you? What are your numbers? Are you getting quicker? And that's all great. But if you're only playing half the games, or you're only fast or strong for a quarter of the game or the first half of the season, it really doesn't affect anything. So a lot of what we do is injury prevention, getting kids in that maybe have never even really been part of a strength and conditioning program or have done their own that isn't necessary. It's bicep curls and it's looking good weights, right? It's going to the beach and looking good stuff versus what's actually core and stuff that you need, lower legs, lower body, resistance training, a lot of that stuff. So we try to do a lot of the injury prevention, make sure the kids can stay healthy, stay on the field. That isn't always necessarily the most popular because sometimes kids don't. A lot of that stuff isn't the fun stuff to do, and you're not necessarily going to see the results in the mirror, but it's going to help them to stay on the field. And I think we've had a lot of success with that with our staff, just because we've had kids that have stayed healthy. If they have gotten an injury, they've recovered very quickly. They've gotten back up to the performance and the level they were at before. And it's really an important part of the job. And also, a lot of our kids' careers are short. A lot of kids, 99.9% of them are not going to play professionally. So we try to maximize the time that they're here. We try to make sure that, they can play as many games as they can towards the end of their career. And then also just kind of make sure that they understand the philosophy that we're trying to preach, which is the same everywhere, which is hard work's going to pay off. No one's going to see what you're doing half the time. A lot of it's, even in the weight room, it's a lot of, I don't know if 100% is 100 or 80 for you. You've got to push yourself. And we keep pushing that and striving for that and trying to hammer that home with kids. So we've done that. We've done a great job. Coach Fordyce has embraced it. David Padilla's done a great job. Our department in strength and conditioning actually reports under our sports medicine. So Dr. Brody, who's our head athletic trainer, she actually oversees it because there's a lot of communication there between the two. So that's kind of how that setup is. And then they report to the coaches with injury reports and stuff like that. So it's kind of a general overview. Again, we got questions coming up. So if there's anything I didn't cover or need to talk more about, definitely during the Q&A session, I'd be happy to.
Yes, very nice. Yes, guys. So if you have questions, make sure you can write it down in the chat or wait for the round table part. The question answers at the end. So Chris, I'm going to pass to Brooke now. Coach Brooke. Yeah.
Thank you for having me this morning. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but I am a byproduct of strength and conditioning and overall health. I grew up in Connecticut, and I was a high school baseball player that got drafted in the 3rd round by the New York Mets in 1989. I was a professional athlete for 15 years. I had the fortunate benefit of my athleticism and my training to play for 5 different teams at the major league level. I played for the New York Mets, Cincinnati Reds, Chicago White Sox, Baltimore Orioles, and Tampa Bay Rays. And I really want to talk about my evolution of what I started with strength and conditioning into where we are today. And back when I was growing up and aspiring to be the best athlete, it was a lot of on your own stuff, free weights, slow movements, and long distance running. So I'm going to kind of give you an outlay of what I used to do. I used to run as a catcher 25 miles a week. So you understand where we are now in training and what it was back then. And we did a lot of heavy weights as a catcher, legs, squats, overhead presses. And for me, at that point in time, I thought that was the top of the line training. Myself, maybe picking the brains of other people that I saw in the gym that maybe, we've idolized Arnold Schwarzenegger back then, Lou Ferrigno. Those are our strength and conditioning coaches back then growing up. But as it evolved and my seasons go on and I got older, I learned to maintain. I learned more about plyometrics. I learned about functional training. And this is the truth. I didn't have a specific trainer okay, until I was with the White Sox in 1997 and 98, that we actually had a full-time trainer with us, and realized that my training had been not the best or beneficial for a long-term career. So we regrouped my program and really went to flexibility and functional training, which was a key point in my career at that time. With my training, and I will tell you this, guys, I learned the most important thing: longevity and durability. And that's what I am now. Well, when I talk to Padilla and their strength coaches and conditioning coaches that we have, it all comes down to longevity. Anybody can be a great athlete for a day, but I think in any sport, especially baseball, it's a marathon. You know, I've got to remind our guys that, you know, baseball, we play 162 games in 182 days. And somehow we have to manage how to maintain our strength, condition, overall health, eating, sleeping, and it's tough. So, you know, I think now where we have specific studies that it's gotten better for the kids. For prime example, I know, and you guys, this is a great profession where I'm getting college kids now that have had specific training since probably they were 14 and 15. They've had speed trainers, they've had weightlifting, they've had doctors and specialists for arm care, preventative care. So, you know, we have to keep pushing this forward so that we meet up with the demands of the athlete, what they want, what they actually need to perform at the next level. And again, I will always come back to this, the longevity of it. The average professional sport, and I'll go football and baseball, the average length of career, guys, is 3.5 years. And that may be long on the NFL, but Major League Baseball, the average lifetime span is 3.5 years in the Major League Baseball. And whether it's due to not producing, but a lot of it's injuries, and how you get back and if you recover 100%. You know, so in 2004, I retired. And, you know, we always said, oh, if I could go back now, what I knew. But the thing I grew out of that, or got out of that, and again, is durability and productability. And I will go on that further to how I preach to kids. Right now, as an athlete, what I'm looking for as an athlete is, first of all, foremost, somebody who has passion and purpose. And with that, we can give them a world of knowledge for them to take in, absorb, and build the character guy that they want to be and create their own future. There is a lot of information out there. Obviously, we fight with online social media information that may not always be correct, but we need to better inform these kids on who we are and what we are. So with Padilla, he brings in a program for us. My question to him is, how do we get the kids to believe? You know, what do we need to do to make them accept this program? And Coach has done a great job with that and talking to me, stating that first and foremost, it's a commitment. We get in the weight room. It is a huge part of being successful on the baseball field. It is commitment to your eating, your sleep, and your commitment to overall learning new techniques so that we can be stronger and better on the baseball field. So we do that. We get the program, we put it together, and now we present it to the kids. And there's always the why factor. Why do we do this? Why now? And it's to remind them durability and productability. Those are the two biggest things for me. With our positions, we have different positions. We have pitchers and we have position players. So with our programs on the pitchers, I'm looking for core. I'm looking for explosiveness from the core and the legs. And then we emphasize the upper body. And on a pitcher, we want some strength, obviously. We want flexibility, range of motion. So the programs I'm looking for will benefit them to have length in their arm, strength in their lower half, again, so that they can get on the mound, not just once, but probably 15 to 20 times throughout a 55-game season. So we're looking for that type of program that is specific for pitchers, preventative arm care, but lower half explosion. with our catchers and our position players, I'm looking for explosive power with range of motion. As you guys know, if we do not have range of motion, we have a tendency to have more injuries. And when you have injuries, you can't be on the baseball field. We have 55 games in approximately 2.5 months. So there's our marathon / sprint, and we've got to be healthy. So the programs we come up with allows these guys to get stronger, okay? More range of motion. And again, it comes back to durability and longevity for us. When I come back to our end of the year program and I evaluate our health and our overall conditioning program, it'll go off of how many games, not that we played, how many games did we miss by our starting players? And if the percentage is low, we usually have a successful season. And, you know, with that, I talk about a value, all right? The value of strength and conditioning to our baseball program. And I'll define value first. Value is 1, availability, got to be available. 2, durability. And 3, productability. So when I tell our kids, your value to our baseball program comes on those three things. Availability is the first thing. If you're not available to be out there at a healthy capacity, you're not going to have productivity, right? If you're not durable, and you only play 10 out of the 55 games, you're not going to be productive. So I state the value and I go back, and it all starts, in my opinion, with the mental and physical training, the strength and conditioning. And from there, when we create value over the long haul, we can then have success, because success is not a day. Success is not 1 year. Success is 15 years at the highest level. 10 years, whatever that goal. It's not a short term. So then we implement that, and we understand that weightlifting just doesn't happen in season. It's really what you do away from the baseball field in the off season. You know, are you training smarter? Are you doing all these little things that can get you to the baseball field to be available, durable, and productive? You know, the pros and cons in baseball or being a head coach, and I'll be honest with you, there are no cons. Cons are just an excuse of not to overcome something or to quit or end up short at the goal line. The pros, I always have the pros and I always talk about it. If you want to be a mentor, a teacher, anything in life that you want to help a cause of others, you have to have the 5 Ps, okay? Passion, purpose, perseverance, productivity, and the most important, perpetual energy. You have to bring energy every day so that you have that goal to reach for the longevity. And when I talk to my kids about that, I say, guys, I will represent the 5 Ps every day. And we do that, and we come out there with energy, and we have some fun. I know there'll be some questions at the end. I think that's the most important part of this for those who do have questions, because they'll be more specific to everybody's thoughts and ideas that they want to get. So I'll be more than willing to open up and answer some of those questions. And thank you for having me again, guys.
Nice. Thank you so much, Coach Brooke. So yeah, so guys, save the questions. Yeah, Jeff, sorry.
Yes?
Jeff, your mic is off.
There we go. Okay. Brooke, I just wanted to say I don't find too many Connecticutans down here. So hello from Connecticut. Norwich.
Oh, very nice. Oh, I went to school there. I went to school at St. Bernard's.
Your mic, Jeff, is mute again. All right. Okay, guys. So now, thank you so much, Coach Brooke. Save your questions for the end, guys. Now we have the head strength and conditioning coach, David Padilla. Please introduce yourself.
Can everybody hear me? Good. All right. Hey, guys. How's it going? I'm David Padilla. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach here at Kaiser. I've been at Kaiser for about 4 years now, and I've been in Florida for a total of 5. So getting into my career in strength and conditioning, I have a kind of like the opposite story of Brooke. I was a college football or a high school football player, unrecruited out of high school. So after high school, I went to a junior college, and in California, junior college school system is pretty big. So I went to a junior college, and once I got there, I was an undersized offensive lineman. I was about 220 pounds, and everybody around me was about 50 pounds bigger and about 6 inches taller. So when we got there, one of the first coaches I met was my strength and conditioning coach. His name's Robert Dos Remedios. He's actually very well renowned in the field. So with his help over the next 2 years, I was able to put on 50 pounds. I was able to earn a starting position. And then from that, I earned a scholarship to play college football in New Mexico. And with all of the work that we did, it was very hard, but at the same time, it was very rewarding in the end because I ended up earning and working for what I wanted. And I saw that the hard work pays off in the end. So I knew, like, from the get-go, like, this is probably what I want to do for my career. So I went through, played football in New Mexico 2 years. And after that, I went to a school called Tarleton State in Texas. It's just outside of Dallas-Fort Worth. And there, I was a graduate assistant for a coach named Rod Cole. I learned a lot over those 2 years. I was able to work with a lot of different sports teams and kind of really just immerse myself for the first time in the field. And I was very green. I didn't know what I was doing. And just like with anything you start, it was kind of a scary experience. But as I grew, became more confident, and with all the help of my coach and staying in touch with Robert Dos Remedios back at College of the Canyons, I grew and was able to like really work well with all those teams. After graduating with my master's degree in 2012, I was hired on at College of the Canyons, the junior college that I actually played football at, as the assistant strength and conditioning coach underneath Robert Dos Remedios. And there I was able to like really kind of define a philosophy and like follow somebody who I really looked up to and kind of just really learn from him and shadow him everywhere I went. So in doing that, I was there for 2 years. After 2 years, I got a phone call from Doug Sosha, who, small world, actually started his career many years before me at College of the Canyons. So he had a connection with Coach Dos. And he asked me to interview for a job down the street from Kaiser at Oxbridge Academy. It's a private high school. So interviewed, everything went well. I accepted the job. I came out here, worked at Oxbridge for a year. And then the next year, Doug Sosha, the head football coach, took the job here at Kaiser and started to develop the football program from scratch. And I was fortunate enough for him to ask me to come along with him and to help him and to help Kaiser build the football program. And then from there, our strength and conditioning program had slowly grown as well. So when I first started, it was myself, and I worked with football, and one other strength coach who worked with most of the other sports teams. And then it kind of just grew more and more. We acquired another strength coach, and then they left, and then kind of became more of a department. And so this past year, strength and conditioning became a real like cohesive department, I would say, where there are 3 assistant strength coaches that work with me now, and we all work very well together, and it's just a really fun environment to work in. So I would say like day-to-day, a day-to-day role for me is a little different, especially right now being in football season. But I try and meet with the assistant strength coaches, and we kind of talk about different things that we're dealing with, maybe different problems, certain things we have to work around, how certain kids are recovering from possible injuries. And then I meet with the training staff, talk to them about what's going on. I get injury reports. kind of go over those, see what kids are able to do during their training sessions, because most kids will get an injury, or some kids will get an injury and think that, oh my goodness, my hand is hurt, I can't do anything. When in reality, there's a lot they can do. We have 3 other perfectly good limbs. So we always try and get the most out of that day. There's never really a day off. So, excuse me. So getting into the training aspect, the frequency of training for our sports teams varies throughout each individual sport. So our football program, depending on the time of year, if they're off season, they're lifting 4 days, they're 2 days a week. And I say training because a lot of times in this profession, there's a lot of strength and conditioning coaches that forget about the second part of that, the name. It's conditioning, and that plays a big part in injury prevention. So football will train 4 days a week. During season, they train 3 days a week. We have other teams, depending on their practice schedules or game schedules. Most teams in season will train twice. Other teams out of season will train 2 to 3 times per week. So our goal whenever training with athletes is always to build better athletes. That being said, we're not just trying to get them stronger, right? That's just one aspect of being a really good athlete. We're trying to make them better movers. We're trying to increase their mobility through certain types of exercises. We're trying to increase their conditioning and their work capacity. You know, we put a high price on developing their work capacity. Now that plays a big role in injury prevention. So the number one cause of injury is usually fatigue. So if we can decrease that fatigue and them being tired when they're on the field, when they're running, during play, we can decrease that sensation of fatigue. We know we are on a right track of injury prevention. Now, that being said, injury prevention, is part of our program, and as young professionals in this field, if your program for your sports teams or your athletes or your clients isn't based around injury prevention, then it's based around injury promotion, right? So you have to be sure, every exercise you're using is in their best interest. So, there's, and so that, how we do it, how we kind of shape our training programs are we base them around full body movements. Each exercise is chosen off of a type of body movement. So if a team comes in and they're training 2 days a week, or just the basic full body movements we always train something explosive. We're going to hit their core or some aspect of it. And there's many different types of core, but we kind of focus on anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-rotation, and rotation. Then we always hit some type of prehab, shoulder prehab or hip prehab. We work a knee dominant exercise, so a squat, lunge, or a step. We hit a pull, and we alternate that between a vertical and a horizontal upper pull. We hit a hinge or a ham, right? So a hip hinge like an RDL or hamstring exercise. So when talking about injuries as well, the hamstring works 2 different joints. And a lot of times we neglect one. Right? A lot of people hit those RDLs and stuff like that, but the knee bending stuff, when we get a lot of hamstring injuries, we're kind of neglecting the knee bending stuff. So that's like a glute ham raise or a supine hip elevated leg curl, stuff like that. And that's stuff you got to make sure that you do. And the last part is a push. So vertical or horizontal push, and how we go about doing that and how we go about loading the body, that's a different question, and I'll save that for the Q&A part. But those are just things that we want to make sure that the body is working together. So a lot of people like to train single joint movements and stuff like that, and that's fine. That's all well and good, but not for an athlete training for a sport who needs to move around. Bodybuilding is a sport of its own. So if that's what you like to do, that's great, and that's what you like to do. But when we're training for athletic performance, we have to think about it a little differently. So we want to make sure that when we pick our exercises, it's not just one thing moving, not just one muscle targeted. It's how is that muscle being used with the rest of the body, and how is everything being tied together at once, and just linking that chain together of the body. So our goal is to never have any injuries, but that is a high goal. And usually sometimes we fall short of that, which is okay, but how do we deal with those injuries, right? We deal with those injuries with our athletic training staff. You know, they do an amazing job in helping diagnose and helping to determine like what each athlete is capable of doing. So when I have those meetings with them and we talk about what they're able to do, okay, they're not able to do anything with that ankle today, but they can do unilateral exercises, lower body, stuff like that. And then once they are able to kind of progress into the weight room, how much flexion in those joints are they able to get, and then how much loading should we kind of be working on? It's just like a constant communication with them that really like helps us out in the end, and helps the kids come back sooner from those injuries. Now, dealing with different teams, you know, each team and each sport has their own different mentalities, right? The best analogy I've ever heard for this is each different sport, they're not different animals, right? They're all different animals in completely different zoos. Does that make sense? So they're all entities of their own. So you just have to be able to understand their sport, understand that every kid is really trying to do their best. And then trying to push them through and push them in a way that helps them. And a lot of times it's just being honest with them. Now, Chris said it earlier, there's a big mental side to coming into the weight room and training. Now, most student athletes come here to play a sport. And a lot of times in high school, they've never had a strength and conditioning program. So it's something brand new to them. And usually brand new things that are hard, most people don't like, right? So it's kind of, you have to find a way to get them out of their comfort zone to be able to do it. And it's that internal battle that they have in their mind every day, thinking like, all right, it's gonna be hard, but I have to push through it. It's gonna be hard, but I have to push through it, going back and forth. And I tell the kids all the time, if you don't wake up every once in a while thinking like, wow, why am I doing this, right? Like have that conscious decision in your mind to get up and go to practice and go to weights. Like, then you really know that you're working hard when you have those thoughts in your head, because it would be really easy to kind of quit, right? It's the easiest thing they'll ever do is to quit and kind of just throw that away. So we have those conversations and we let them know, like, you know, those different thoughts that you have are okay, but it's how you respond to those things, and how you respond to everything is really what the mental side and how you're going to develop as a person in the end. Because in the end of the day, this lasts for 4 years, but hopefully they take something out of it mentally and they can take that with them for the rest of their lives. Now, different sizes in the weight room Fortunately, we have 2 decent sized weight rooms where we can get a good sized teams in there. So we can work with, in one weight room, we can work with at least 50 guys, 50 to 60 guys at once. So we don't really run into a problem with space. Now, I came from a junior college setting where I would have, during a football session, we could have 80 to 100 guys in our weight room at once. So it's just about logistics. So we use all of our space and we don't limit it to what's inside of the weight room. So we will take med balls and we'll take kettlebells and we'll take stuff outside. So we'll have stations outside going on. We'll have different exercises on the platforms working, different exercises on the racks working. And I like to call it controlled chaos. So everybody knows what they're doing. If you just looked at it kind of walking by in the parking lot, you'd be like, what the heck's going on over there? But everybody's in the right spot. Don't worry. All right. So sorry about that. That being said, we at Kaiser, we really just hang our hat on strength and conditioning, and it's a testament to really Chris Swogger and all of our head coaches, and just how you go to some schools and you see a lot of head coaches don't really care the development in the weight room and the strength and the longevity of their players. They just want them to get to practice, and they're like, okay, you have 20 minutes to work with my team, or I don't want to show up today. But you heard it from Brooke how important it is to all of our head coaches, them training and them being able to show up to practice and feel good, and them going to games to feel good, then be able to play all season long and working hard and stuff like that. That kind of stuff just makes our job 10 times easier. Not having to kind of go back and forth and beg coaches, hey, can we just get a couple more minutes? Can they really need to do something? You know what I mean? So just very fortunate to be here at Kaiser and work with everybody that we do. That's kind of my overview.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Coach Dylan. And if you guys want, I'm going to start with the questions now. And then my idea, Jeff, I think you might agree with this. Every campus get one question, then we go kind of like in order for the students. Is that okay? And then, so just guys select questions if you got to ask. I have one. I believe this one could go straight to Coach Brooke. And then this is a question that I discussed with my students, but also for me. How do you keep your athletes motivated, Brooke? And then how do you overcome a defeat? So the mental side when they get a defeat, please.
Well, motivation, the way I preach it is that if I have to motivate you, you're probably at the wrong place at the wrong time. You have chosen to come to our baseball program. You have chosen to come to Kaiser so that you can fulfill your journey. And here's a vehicle. We're the vehicle for you to go and fulfill your needs. So motivation, for me, I motivate the guys occasionally. When I see they're tired, when I see that they don't see the vision that I have out in front of them. But daily motivation comes within, and that's how we recruit. If, again, passion and purpose were for the 5 Ps. If you don't have that in what you're doing, it's okay, but you're probably in the wrong location. And so we'll move on from there. What was the second question part of that? Sorry, it broke up on me.
Yeah, sorry. How do you overcome a defeat? So let's say you had all planned, you went there, you still lost the game, and then how do you come and talk to them about it?
So the word defeat, obviously, in an Ultimate Warrior, there is no such thing. It's a learning moment. And in order to play 55 games, you will have defeat. But what we learn from that, how we strengthen from that as an individual, is what I apply to those kids. And it's the coaching staff to take that defeat and make it into strength for the team going forward. So really, I really want people to go internal with themselves and the team to find the answer, to correct the problem if we have a defeat, and to understand that we have several games coming that we can change the outcome with the right plan and the right focus.
Wow, good job, good job. I have John Hatton on the line, UDC of Exercise Science. John, are you there? John was there.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, sir, I'm here.
Nice,
Yeah,
John. Yeah, do you want to, can you read the questions from your campus, please?
Yes. One of my questions was, what types of testing do you guys do as far as, I guess, for the strength and conditioning coach with the athletes, like pre-post, pre-testing, athletic testing, as well as performance testing, I guess, during, maybe even during season, of course, after seasons.
Okay, that's a great question, and I kind of skipped over that during my last talk. Our testing, so I view testing as this. We only have a certain amount of days to train, and we only have a certain amount of time to train. So testing for us, like let's say we're talking about football with a big group, or baseball, they have a really big roster. If we test, that could take up an entire week of training. So we do test, and we will max them, and we max them on a few different lifts. We'll work a hang clean or a power clean, kind of depending on how well that team does. Like if they're really good at hang cleans, we can progress to power cleans. So we'll test on a clean, we will test on a front squat, and we will also test on a push jerk and bench. And we'll test on bench. We don't really hang our hat on bench, but we can use those numbers to kind of manipulate other exercises. But what we do test a lot is we test their body fat and their weight, and we kind of track their gain of lean body mass. So that tells us a lot, right? That kind of tells us more than whether or not they're strong. Because sometimes, like, if you train often, you have those days where you feel really, really good. And those days come maybe like a handful of times a year. So during those weeks that we train, you can try and time it out in your program for somebody to kind of peak in those times, but it doesn't always work for everybody if there's 100 guys on your roster. But we see trends of people gaining strength, and then we use those numbers to program different exercises. Now, that body comp stuff is something I've used for quite a while, and I think it shows a lot more. It shows how good, like, we do a lot of metabolic stuff after our weights and with our speed and agility training. So seeing body fat go down, lean body mass go up, that really tells us a lot. That tells us, all right, if you see that, somebody's getting stronger. And then the numbers down the line, when we'll test maybe 2 to 3 times a year. But the body comp stuff we'll do every 2 weeks. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, very nice. We have Ryan Farrell from Jacksonville campus. Please, he has a question from one of his students. Please, Ryan.
Hi, Coach Padilla. Thank you for everything. I just want to know, for students that are interested in getting into the field of strength and conditioning, what would be your your best advice for them for getting their foot in the door initially?
So as far as strength and conditioning, find a coach near you, or start sending out emails to try and get an internship somewhere. That's getting your foot in the door. Now, hopefully that internship can turn into a graduate assistant somewhere. But I would look at colleges around wherever you live, all over the country, and really just send out emails, see who's hiring, see who's looking for help in their department. Now, that being said, when you start out in this profession, expect to work a few hours a day, a lot of hours a day, and not really be compensated for in the end. But that experience in the end of the day really pays off and will help you earn that paycheck. This isn't really a career path that you take to make big money right away. This is something that you really have to kind of like sit in and cook in and just really absorb to be able to be really good towards the end of your, or as you get in more further into your career. So those internships are huge. And then hopefully that growing into a graduate assistant position somewhere and being able to get your master's, that kind of really pays off because of the certifications and some certifications that you may need. Like the CSCS, you don't need a master's to take, but there is the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Association to take their certification test, the SCCC. There's a lot of C's on it. You have to be in a graduate program to be able to take that test.
And have you found that to get a job within, the collegiate level, a master's degree is required for our students?
It's not required, but it is highly looked upon. It's kind of just depending on the coach who's hiring, what they're looking for. I think a CSCS, if you have your undergraduate with a CSCS, that can suffice, but definitely that master's degree just kind of sets you apart from everybody else.
Awesome, thanks.
Can I jump in on this one too, just a little bit from my
Yes, of
side?
course.
So to answer the last question with the masters, to me, if I'm going to hire someone or David brings a resume to me, the masters means a lot in the sense if you've been a GA, because I think a lot of it goes back to the experience. Because like what I said before, I'm not going to hire someone just to work in the weight room. Like you're going to be working with kids, 18-year-olds, in some cases 16 if they graduated early. Some kids are going to have issues. Some kids are not going to be the best person when they start here. And so there's a lot of other things that I need to see that you've done to be able to trust you with those kids. And so the experience is big. I'd say the other thing is to expand a little bit on what David said is not only find a coach or an internship by you, but try to be as specialized as possible. If we get applications all the time, and if I'm posting a job and someone's worked, at a clinic somewhere, but we're hiring for an athletic department, it's a little different. I'm not saying one's different than another, but if you want to go into baseball, try to get into baseball. If you want to get into an athletic department, you probably need a broad scope, because unless you're going with a football program in a school or university that just has a strength coach for football, you're going to have to work with multiple sports. So we need to see that diversity. And then the last part, like anything, network and be professional. Networking is huge. Again, that goes back to that GA, which is you've worked in a department, you have someone that can give you a reference, but you also have other people that you've worked with that are going to go to other schools, and you never know who's going to be your reference. So you may have someone that's working next to you or even starts after you, that's below you. Treat them with respect. Obviously, you're not going to be friends with anyone, but you have a professional relationship with them, because they may end up at a school or a professional organization or something 5 years from now, and you're looking for a job, and you can call that person and say, hey, can you put my resume in front of someone? Because I'll be honest with you, I hate posting jobs. Like whenever we have a job opening, I'd much rather go through someone who knows someone who knows someone than to post a job, because it's really hard. Reference sheets are you should never put someone on your reference sheet that isn't going to give you a good opinion. So they're kind of, I don't want to say useless, but if you put someone on there who I'm going to call and give something, and they're going to say something bad about you, then you need to work on your resume. But I want to know someone that knows you that can give you a recommendation. So networking, and then when you go in for the interview, killer mentality. It's your shot. You may or may not get a ton of interviews. Be prepared, be professional. You cannot go overboard on your preparation. You can't go overboard on how you're dressed or how you carry yourself, because that's your best example of you. If someone shows up and isn't great, that should be the best I ever see them at the end of the day. So if someone's late or doesn't do something, then it's only going to get worse from there.
Yes, very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice. I agree. And then, guys, just to have an idea, our students, sometimes you complain when you need to train 2 students, 3 students. Here, David Padilla is talking about 50, 60 athletes at the same time. So it's a lot of work, guys. So just...
That's not that many.
All right. We have a next question here. Jeff, can you go, please?
Yeah, I'm going to go controversial. I got a baseball coach on one hand. I got the head strength coach on the other hand. How do you guys feel about overhead work with baseball players? Always a good controversial topic.
I'll go first on this. No, it's not controversial. It's controversial when it comes to the individual that may not accept or commit to the workout, understanding the benefits. Some people go into workouts thinking this could hurt me, and that's the wrong mentality. For me, I'm going to tell you this: I had longevity, and I did every exercise possible to within my degree I could do it in, and I learned and got better from it, whether I believed it was going to be a long-term training session or short-term. So I think it's the mindset and the outlook of why you're doing something. And here's the thing: if you try something, you confirm with yourself if it's good for you or not. So for me, try it. It may benefit you. We don't have the answers. I'm going to tell you a funny story. I played with Cal Ripken. If anybody knows who Cal Ripken is, he played 20 years straight and didn't miss a game. Okay, he played basketball every day in the off season and occasional lifting, but a lot of push-ups. And that guy played 20 years without missing a game. Amazing. So, we can learn from others, but never stop learning, I think, is the key.
See, you don't hear very many baseball coaches on board with something like that. That's awesome.
Right. Right.
So just to kind of play off what he said, it's exactly right. It's based off the individual. If they have certain limitations, then of course we're not going to have them lift something overhead. But for a baseball player in general, a dumbbell hang snatch and just being able to control it and decel that weight going in reverse, rather than, especially for a pitcher who's coming full force forward every single day, they need to work those decel muscles, everything in the shoulder on the backside, to be able to keep that shoulder nice and strong so they're able to throw all the time. And now a lot of times, like, injury comes with doing more than they're able to. So having the right weight prescribed for those exercises and making sure like you're in that sweet spot of working hard and feeling good and not just kind of just straining your entire body just to move a weight. Now,
right.
That's the difference, being like structurally sound when you do this stuff. So I highly promote it. I have some friends who work with a lot of baseball players as well, who kind of specialize in baseball players who definitely do some overhead stuff. But he has 2 or 3 guys who are at some different teams in the majors who are their coaches specifically asked them not to, so he has no choice but not to. But in general, I think it's a good thing.
Right.
If used correctly.
Yeah, it's always like, I don't know, like you read one article, then you read another, and they're like, don't do it. I'm like, no way, man. It's always, like you said, it's individual. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. I needed that confirmation.
Good job. We have Professor Brian Bankley from Orlando. Please, Coach. I have a question.
Hey, guys. So my question kind of is involved more with like the recovery aspect. What type of nutritional strategies do you guys implement or monitor to help your athletes recover? And also, do you monitor their sleeping as well? Or do you do any type of inquiries about that with your athletes?
So with nutrition and with sleep and monitoring, that it just comes with a lot of talking to them and educating them in how everything works together. So we go over nutrition, and we have this, I give them this packet. It's not very big because I know if it was, like, they wouldn't read it, but there's just like some very simple bullet points in how to conduct yourself and how to have some proper nutrition, even in the calf or in your dorm room. And so I give them the sheet, and it has a couple different things that they can put up in their dorm room. One is like, there's 3 different pages, and it's like green, yellow, and red in big blocks. And there's different lists of food that they can keep in their dorms that would be good. Green, obviously, really good for you. Yellow, yeah, eat every once in a while. And red, like really try and stay away from. Then we talk about nutrition and eating breakfast, just as a statistic for all athletes in the entire world. About 50% of athletes don't eat breakfast. And so as far as like calorie intake and being nutritionally sound, like they're hurting themselves from the get-go. Without enough calories in your body and not having proper nutrition, like that leads to more injury than you would even think. Like you might feel good during that day for practice, but without enough fuel in your system, you are going to fatigue even if you train very hard. So that leads to injury as well. And those are things that we really can't control and kind of like keep our thumb on them about, but we definitely talk about all the time. And sleep is huge. Getting 8 hours is really big as far as recovery and being able to not get injured and being just being ready for the next day and for all of the demands of a collegiate athlete. But the wool is not pulled over my head, and I know that they are in college, so I know that there are late nights for multiple reasons, studying, etc.
Dave, may I jump in? This is Coach Fordyce.
Yes, tear it up.
This is very dear to me, and I want to tell you this. My average schedule, when we played in the major leagues, I'm going to reiterate some of the things. We played 7 days out of the week. Okay, you played 162 games in 182 days, and every third day you're on a flight. So my average day would consist of this. I wake up about 11 a.m., and I'll just start off there. And I get up, I move around. So my breakfast is my lunch. I was at the ball field at 1:30 to 2 p.m. so that I could be out at the field for 4 p.m. practice, pre-practice. The game didn't start till 7, okay? Your game usually goes 3.5 hours, so we're looking at 10:30, 11. By the time you left the dugout back to your hotel and or apartment, it was close to 12. By the time your adrenaline kicked down from the rush of 55,000 people screaming, it was 3 to 4 in the morning. And the cycle starts all over again. And what they didn't talk about and emphasize when I was going through it was sleep. Now, food they provided, but there wasn't a professional person with specific sleep habits and dietary supplements that would take with vitamins and protein. We fended for ourselves. And if I could go back again, hindsight, my sleeping patterns, I would create better habits. And I swear it felt like there was 2 or 3 years I didn't sleep until October 26th at the end of the season. And I know I could have benefited myself and my career if I learned or at least explored my sleep patterns better.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in. I think the challenge, it's going to depend on level. So for us, we have probably, it ranges from team, but I'd say 30% of our kids live on campus. So the rest all commute. Versus the Division I school, I see Florida State logo up on the screen, so I'll use them. So Florida State, where I went, they have nutrition table, and Division I school, scholarship athletes, so most of them live on campus. So you've got kind of what David was talking. They have their own performance lab, they have their own cafeteria, and they actually have the food label that they used to, green, yellow, red, and based off if you're supposed to weight gain, maintain, or lose weight, that's what you could eat. So if you're green, you can eat everything with green. If you're yellow, yellow, whatever. And you're always, majority of the time, those kids are going to eat on campus because that's what's free to them. So that's easier to control there. With us, we try to keep it a little bit more loose, only because we know 60% of our kids are going to go back home. And depending upon what their parents are going to cook for them, what their eating habits have been, how much money they have, they're limited in what they're going to be able to do at home. So we try to make it pretty broad for them. Everyone can get chocolate milk, peanut butter and jelly. We try to keep some of that basic stuff that we know you should be able to get. we can go high level with it, but at the same time, we just know there's limitations. So keeping it simple is good. Again, having the conversation with them, and then just being educated. I mean, I think a lot of it's the outcome. So you can see stuff. I mean, like David said, kids are going to be late. I mean, just use common sense on certain nights, certain weekends, certain holidays. There's going to be issues. We schedule 6 a.m. practices sometimes the day after Halloween, or we schedule certain things on certain days, knowing that it's going to limit kids doing things the night before, or if they do, we're aware of it for a reason. So, I mean, you have to be flexible with that, but again, depending upon the level you're at, with Major League Baseball, it's going to be different than Division I, than Division II, than NAI, than high school, than whatever. So, I mean, you're going to have to be flexible. I think a basic knowledge of it's good. But again, I think it's just using common sense and kind of thinking back, if I was an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, what would I do? What would I eat? And then talking with the kids about, their family life, if they live at home, and, what do your parents eat? Or, what's a typical meal? Knowing their background, if they're Cuban, or if they're Haitian, or if they're Italian, you kind of have an idea on the type of food that's going to be in their house. So you can kind of help them a little bit with the type of food that's probably accessible to them and that they should be eating.
Very nice, very nice. I have a question here from William Snowden. The first part go to Chris Walker, the second to David Padilla from Ryan Farrell. What adjustments have you done to make based off all this pandemic situation for safety and precautions? So first in your side, Chris, and then after with Padilla in the strength and conditioning, please.
So it's been interesting. And if you had asked me this question in March, I would have given you a different answer than April, May, June, because it changes a lot. But so we did so some of the stuff that we do is required by the NAI and by our conference. So when everyone came back, we did an initial test of everybody. So we did a basic COVID test. We got a baseline from that. And then we do daily monitoring with temperature checks before practices, before weight rooms. We really encourage the kids to be upfront and honest with us. If you have any symptom whatsoever, call us. Get with our athletic trainers. They will notify them on what to do next. We'll monitor symptoms. We don't want them around. Now, with that being said, we have kids with colds, flus, sinus infections. So, I mean, that's why we monitor it, because there's different levels. But either way, we don't want anything to spread. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, it was challenging because we had never been through a point in time where you have college and even high school kids from all different parts of the country stopping at different times. Everyone else was always consistent, right? I could tell you when the team was going to start practice and stop practice, whether they're in Nebraska, California, Florida. They're all high school seasons, college seasons are all basically the same. With us, some schools were shutting down in March, some were continuing to go. I mean, so we got creative, and David can talk a little bit about kind of doing some Zoom sessions and virtual sessions during the pandemic to have kids log on and do some basic stuff. Again, it was challenging where they're at. I know there were some kids that lived in apartments who the people that lived below them weren't too happy when they were doing some stuff in their living room. But it is what it is. But so we did that. We changed the comeback. So when everyone came back, we did an initial assessment week where we went through some basic stuff just to make sure that they were able to do it. And then the first week, the 3 weeks of practice, they actually were not allowed to work with their coaches practicing it with strength and conditioning. Now, the coaches could have input and help, but we really put them through a strength and conditioning program to kind of get them back in shape, to make sure that we, again, prevented any sort of injury, and to get a kind of gauge on where they were. And they had to get cleared to progress into practice. So obviously during this whole time, we're monitoring COVID symptoms and we're making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do and kind of keeping them within that bubble. But I know some schools didn't do that. Some schools just jumped back into it. And I think there was probably more injuries from that. Again, because you're, at least at this level, I mean, we have kids from all over. We have a lot of kids in certain sports from certain areas, but our women's soccer team, I think we have 4 domestic kids, all the rest are international. And so, a lot of them flew back home to Sweden or England or wherever they're from. So that's a completely different world than what we're living in as far as the accessibility to fitness equipment. They didn't shut down, so they might have been in the gym when kids here were not. So we really had to bring them back together, and again, make sure we had a baseline for them. From a weight room perspective, at least from my side, and again, David can talk more about it, the cleanliness. You know, we had to upgrade with all of our cleaning supplies. We had to look at smaller groups and shifting stuff around. We had, you know, we use a lot more open air. You know, we talked about going outside, but the more we can get outside and do things, the better. You know, and I don't know how much it's going to change, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know if this, the example I would give the kids and coaches is this was kind of like, I think, the 9/11 moment for them. And what I mean by that is if you're young enough to remember flying before 9/11, you could walk right on the plane, right? Like you just get your stuff, walk on, no big deal. And then 9/11 hit and security kicked in, and now it was heightened right at 9/11, but we've never stopped all those procedures and processes. We've continued them on. So I don't know how much of what we're currently doing and the profession itself with protocols, cleanliness, checkpoints, smaller groups, I don't know how much of that will go back to normal or go back to the way it was before, or how much of it's going to stay with us. I would expect there to be a heightened, I guess, sensitivity or more of an, I guess, looking more at sicknesses. In the past, I think it was kind of one of those things like if you can work through it, you work through it. And now I think with flus, colds, sniffles, it's going to be more challenging to figure out, all right, who's making this up and who isn't, who has a legitimate symptom, and then also making sure they stay away, because if that spreads, I don't see like it was before where you can just keep rolling with stuff. You're probably going to have to shut down, whether it's COVID or not. I just think people are going to look at a sickness differently moving forward than they used to.
Quick, David Padilla, if you can talk a little bit about the arrangements you made, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing we did, well, like Chris said, we have kids from all over the place, all over the country, kind of all over the world. So when everybody was sent home for COVID, everything was shut down in the United States. So we knew that there were no gyms open. Now, with gyms open, like normal summers, normal like spans of time off, it's never 3 months. We're never away from kids for like 3 or more months. And so it's usually a much smaller gap. And during those times, if they're able to get out of their house, they weren't quarantined inside. They were like, they could go hang out with their friends. They can go to the gym. They can go do different things. So you can assume that they're more active than they probably were during this time. So we would with some of the teams, we would do some Zoom stuff, and that helps, right? But it was mostly body weight training, different exercise, lots of push-ups, lots of lunges, different things like that, just to make sure that they were continuing to move and giving them some running to do on their own outside, but having to hold them accountable and then being inside, like you don't know who is really kind of doing it. So you have to lean towards the side of most people probably aren't, just to stay safe, just to be on the safe side, because we don't want to come back and kind of go full go and see all these injuries as we're trying to start a bunch of different athletic seasons. So as they were coming back, we developed an assessment, and it was not difficult at all. It was very low level, but it was just to ensure that they were able to do some of the bare minimum stuff. So it was a basic dynamic warm-up. We do some low-level plyos, just some line hops back and forth to make sure they were able to absorb some force. Some lateral movement. They had to do a few different shuffle reps in a certain amount of time. They're going 10 yards, and then they had to do like running lines. So it was covering 30 yards, but they ran 10 yards back, 5 yards back. They had a certain amount of time and a certain amount of rest, just making sure that they were able to recover and kind of do that repetitively a few different times and not hurt themselves or not be able to do it. Because if they're not able to do something like that at that low level, then they're definitely not ready for a full training session. And so we didn't have many who failed, but those who failed would have to work through that assessment until they were able to pass it, and then they were able to join the rest of the team and kind of progress from there. Now with weight room size, I said I worked with like 50 to 60 people in the weight room. Now it was a lot more logistics. With other teams, we had to make sure that they had 2 different weight room times. That way they were able to split up. So we didn't have groups that big. Football, we had 2 different groups of 40, but we would split them up. Like a group of 40, some of them would be inside doing a couple different exercises, some would be outside. That way there weren't that many together all at one time, and we'd have them kind of rotate through things like that. Before sessions, they're getting their temperatures taken, and they're having a COVID assessment done by our athletic training staff. And then while we're training, as it's not fun at all, but everybody's wearing a mask. I'm wearing a mask the entire time I'm coaching. So everything's muffled, so it makes everything a little bit harder. It makes it harder for you to breathe. Oh my goodness, lifting heavy weights and trying to breathe through that thing is not fun, but it's just certain precautions we had to take. And then after every session, there is a full wipe down, spray down of the entire weight room by all of the guys. So we actually had to, in an hour session, we had to allot at least 10 minutes. So we're losing 10 minutes of working time, but for their benefit to be able to clean and stuff like that, that's just something we had to do.
Yes, very nice. I have Professor Charlotte Gurman, Program Director for Orlando campus. She has a question, please.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what strategies would you recommend for students to prepare for this newer push with the virtual and technological adaptations of the field, since COVID kind of revealed that so many people are still, real Stone Age in their, actions or whatever. So what would you tell students, and how would you tell them to prepare for changes that are coming?
That's actually kind of a funny question. So I remember being in grad school and talking to different people about virtual training, and it had just kind of tipped the iceberg then. And there are a lot of people who had been in the profession before me who I even looked up to, and they were like, that stuff's no good. You know what I mean? You're losing an interaction. But in today's day and age, it's just growing more and more and trending that way. So kind of with everything trending that way, as young professionals, make sure you understand the basics and make sure you're able to coach somebody thoroughly before you try, and just really kind of immerse yourself in the cyber training game. Because you see everybody on Instagram who thinks they're able to do it, but like you really have to be able to do it before, like in person, before I would try and doing it online, because it's a very different interaction when you're trying to talk to somebody online. But once you kind of like establish yourself and kind of get into it, being able to send programs out on the computer, being able to like check in with your clients or your athletes virtually, like having a platform to be able to do that, that's kind of a big deal.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. I have a question here for Coach Brooke. This is from Kaiser, Miami. Coach, in your years of experience, what do you believe is most important when preparing for a game? Coach? Do you hear me, Coach? No?
I'll text him to refresh his computer here.
Okay, don't worry. So I go to the next question. So in this meantime, I have Professor Brian Binkley. Coach Binks, can you ask your question, please?
Yeah, hey, Coach Padilla, this is specifically for you. Curious about your approach to your strength conditioning philosophy. Do you use more of a linear approach or undulated approach, and how do you make that distinction between the specific teams and seasons?
That's a good question. I follow an undulating linear model. So we are every 3 weeks we are changing our rep schemes. So we are kind of chasing numbers every 3 weeks. So we'll start in our hypertrophy phase, so like a little higher volume, where the weights are obviously relatively lower. And then after 3 weeks of being in that hypertrophy phase, we change. And then our reps go lower and our intensity goes higher, so our weights go a little heavier. And then we'll switch back 3 weeks after that and kind of get into another hypertrophy phase, but with countdown. So if we were doing 10 reps, now we'll go 10, 8, 6 in a hypertrophy phase. Then we'll switch, and we follow that trend all year long. Because with different sports and like having kind of crazy seasons where they might play 2 games or 3 games in a week, this and that, and like different things going on all the time, we kind of had to follow a structure that is just that will benefit them, and kind of trending them always getting stronger, always trying to get a little better throughout the season. And we follow that trend even through season. Now our sets might change, but like we kind of follow the same rep schemes. How we structure a certain day might change, but we're still trying to get stronger as we go through the season. Most people kind of get into a season, most coaches get into a season, it's like their maintenance phase, but I think they kind of miss out on a lot during season if they're just maintaining to where they are. We're trying to get better. Like you play in a season, you play until playoffs, and you're just maintaining through playoffs. Well, then you stayed the same all season long in that aspect. Now we're trying to continually get stronger and continually get better. As everybody's maintaining, we're still climbing that ladder to be better towards the end of the season. Towards national championship is the goal every year.
Very nice. And then I have a question here for Joseph Fiorina. And are you use any functional movement screens or other corrective exercise? This could be either for Chris or for you.
So we don't FMS everybody. We use different parts of the FMS. Maybe if we see some like mobility issues or some movement issues. Every semester and every start of a training cycle, so say it's the beginning of the fall semester, and all the teams are coming back, or it's spring semester, all the teams are coming back, we start the same way. We start from ground zero, and we teach everybody how to do the simplest movements again. So we got to teach everybody how to squat. We teach everybody how to hinge, and we teach everybody how to land from a jump. So because we get mid-year transfers, or we'll get new kids at the next semester, and we'll get even more new kids at the beginning of summer. So there's constantly new kids, and throwing them into a program that's been going on for a while and just in the middle of it, you'd see just deer in the headlights. So we like to start over and start from ground zero. And what that does is it just reiterates for all of the kids who have been there for maybe 2, 3, some of them 4 years. It just helps them to learn that stuff even better, how to goblet squat. If they're goblet squatting well, if they're able to bend their knees and kind of do that stuff, or if they're not, it helps them to do that better. And it helps those kids become leaders and teach the other kids. So we just kind of like use the eyeball test as we're going through those simple movements, making sure they're able to move. If not, then we either progress or regress them as called for.
Very good. Just before we go to next question, Coach Padilla, do you give any like transition? Let's say like you train, let's say for a month on mesocycle, and then you give a deload phase. Do you guys use that approach, or the way you alternate the volume and intensity covers that?
That covers that. We don't take a week and deload. And most of the time we have like, they're not training consecutive days, so they get a few days in between training sessions sometimes, so they're really recovered by the time they come back.
So let me add something real quick and circle back kind of to something real quick when we asked about jobs and stuff. So the philosophy that David talked about with the constantly getting better and not maintaining, that type of stuff I'm talking about as a culture, like that's we talk about that as coaches, we talk about that as administrators. Like, that's our philosophy as a department and as a program, which is why when you're interviewing, you need to find out what the philosophy is, because David fits well with us because that's what's preached every second of every day, all day long. So the kids are just going to, you know, flow into that. And if they don't like that and they go to complain to their coach, well, the coach is on the same page. So if you're looking for a place to work, or you're going on a job interview, you really need to find out what, not the philosophy of an individual coach or program is, but what the overall department, because you're going to be much more successful when everyone's on the same page and you're not trying to fight a system or a problem, because you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Now, that doesn't mean you can't change people's minds, but you're just going to go a lot farther because you're going to have the support of the head coach, the athletic director, the assistant coach, the strength and conditioning assistant, everyone's on the same page, and just makes your job a lot easier. And that's a big disconnect sometimes, and that's why there's some issues, because this goes to everything. This goes to language and the way you dress and the way you allow people to talk in the weight room or pick up trash, whatever. I mean, strength and conditioning is a function of what we do as a department. It's not simply an added bonus to help kids get better. So everyone that gets that degree and goes into work is an important part, and your philosophy needs to align. And that's a question that a lot of people don't ask when they go on job interviews.
Very nice, very nice. I think we're going to have time for three questions. So one from John Hatton, please.
There you go. I know you touched a little bit on this, Coach, the strength conditioning coach, especially when I was speaking directly to about coaching to some degree as far as pursuing a career for some of our students in that area. I was actually an assistant strength and conditioning coach at Florida State way back for football, basketball, and track, and so I know some of the pitfalls and some of the cool, great things about it, some of the bad things. But having said that, what's it like, being a coach, the head strength coach for that matter, or even the head coach of a university program or multiple programs? What do you like most about it? What do you like least about it? Just kind of lets our students know that want to go that direction, that there are some really, really cool things, but there might be some things that just kind of stink about it, in which, obviously you're choosing to go to the direction of actually doing it. So there's a lot more positives, I'm assuming, than negatives, but just something to give them an idea what could be some of those overwhelming cool things, and of course some of the things that might not be there with regard to coaching.
Yeah. Pros and cons. So I don't know, there's a few best things. Being able to watch these kids develop from like coming in as 18 years old, like that, and they look like kids, and then seeing how they act and seeing how they just conduct themselves over 4 years, and seeing how that changes and seeing how they evolve, and knowing that like you played a small role in that, and that's like extremely rewarding. You definitely don't want to do this for the money. You want to do this because like you really believe in it, and like this is what you really like to do, and like you'll know. But that's the best part. The money, I'll tell you this, like getting paid and money will come, but you have to kind of immerse yourself and really like dive into it head first, and just not look for a paycheck, look for an experience in the end. Now, like, what if this was Division 1? You'd have so much money to play with, but I think that being at this level, finding ways around like not having all the cool gadgets but still being able to do the same things, I really like. I kind of like hold that dear to my heart. I love being able to do that. That's a fun part of it. Working with a bunch of kids at once, and kind of just like it being like everything's on fire, things are going around, things are moving really fast. I love a fast-paced day. I have tried to take a job, and I took a job and worked in the private industry and tried working with a gym, and like a brand new gym, really nice, like brand new stuff, working individually with people in like small groups. And I just knew it wasn't for me. You know what I mean? Like it's for some people, but that part wasn't for me. Like I know that this is for me here. There's long hours, so some people might look at that as cons, but your day kind of goes by really fast. Like you'll have early mornings, some late nights, but I don't know. I just having tried something else, I was bored. So I know here, like everything kind of changes. Things might change at the drop of a hat. And you just have to be ready for it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, to some degree as well. When I was just an assistant. Now the head strength coach was David Hallinger, which in the NSCA Hall of Fame there. So he was something else. And it was, to your point with regard to money. When we won a national championship in 1993 in football was when he started making a little more money. Prior to that, he wasn't making a lot of money, but he had played professional football for the Eagles, and then he actually played under Bobby Bowden when he was at West Virginia. So he'd, that's to your point. He just you got to you have to love it, So he loved it. He loved being with the athletes. And some of the things that you echo, I echo the same thing that you were just saying there. But there were other ways to make money. Like I taught seminal conditioning courses,
Right.
which were to students, at Florida State at the time. Coach let me get some cash from that. So I had a couple other ways I could make some money. But you're right. The money's not there initially, but you put in the time, you put in the work, and you show that, that's what you love to do. That, yeah, definitely going to follow. I appreciate that, Coach.
Yeah, of course.
Very nice, very nice. We're going to have two more questions. One for Coach Brooke. Are you there, Coach?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties.
Don't worry. Thank you. This question is from Kaiser, Miami. In your years of experience, what do you believe is most important when preparing for a game, please?
Preparing for a game?
Yes.
Well, so it's all internal with me. If my mind is right, the body will follow. And for me, to prepare a game, prime example, I'm facing one of the better pitchers, let's say Roger Clemens. I am not competing against Roger Clemens in my mind. I'm competing who Brooke Fordyce needs to be at that moment. I refer to the training, the teachings, everything, so that I become an internal warrior to then take on my opponent, faceless, nameless. So many times in competition, we talk about other people, other teams. It's an internal preparation that I bring to myself so that I can compete in that moment with what I have.
It's very nice, Coach. And then we have one question here from Ryan Farewell, please. Last one.
Yeah, this is for Mr. Strauger and Coach Padilla. Do you have an internship program in place right now? And have you received any? Do you take in-house from the flagship students, or have you taken on any other KU students from other campuses or even other universities?
Yeah, we do have an internship program. I think one of the challenges that we've run into in the past, which we obviously probably need to work on down the road, is we work on 16-week semesters, and obviously our seasons are pretty long, whereas other campuses sometimes work off 4 weeks classes. So if we bring someone in, we typically want them for the full season or the full year to give them that full experience. Not that we can't take someone for a short period of time, it's just we're limited in what we can do with them. And if we're going to do an internship, we want someone to obviously, that level of internship is good for them to see the backside of it and what goes on. But when to really get to work with someone, they'd have to shadow another coach. I mean, obviously certifications are big for them to work independently. But if someone is done with their program, or they have free time on their own, or there's a program where their class is longer, they have multiple lined up where they do multiple internships in a row, and then we definitely would. I mean, the more people, the better. I mean, we got 800 student athletes. We've got kids, doing different stuff. So the more people we have on hand, the better for us. But then also, I think, that's why we're doing this today. We want people to learn and get into the field and be experienced, and it's rewarding for them to come in and get to do that as well. So if anyone's interested, they can obviously email David. We would pass that information along to him, and then Dr. Brody, our Director of Sports Medicine, and then they can follow up and see if there's a fit there with scheduling and time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. So guys, I have one more thing here. I think it's fun to do it. And then this we're doing Brazil. I'm from Brazil. So I'll put you against the wall. And then I want to start with Coach Brooke. Give me one statement that will motivate our students. Everybody's gonna watch this now and then later. Give me one statement, like motivate them.
One statement. Tomorrow cannot be had if we don't master today.
Nice. Very good, guys. Very good. David Padilla, please.
Okay, so mine is do or do not. There is no try. You can say that you've tried, but you either did it or you didn't.
Very nice. Very nice. Chris Swagger.
I'd say there are no part-time champions. So
Say it again. Sorry.
there are no part-time champions. You can't, if you're not putting everything in all the time, every day, don't expect to get the results. So, you know, you can't give everything you have at work, you know, kind of going back to kids, and then not get to sleep at night or not nutrition. You've got to do every aspect of everything you do all the time like you want to be a champion. And if you do that, then you're going to get there.
Very nice. Very nice. And I wanted two more. John Hatton, my friend. Let's go.
Yeah, another question? Is that what you're asking?
Just a final statement. No. Final statement for our students. Motivation.
Motivational statement? Oh, goodness. I don't know. Put 100%. You put in 100%, you expect 100% back. So.
Very good. And then Jeff, the UDC, the man.
Throw me under the bus like that?
Yeah.
Let's see. If I had to say one statement, it's, oh God, I mean, I don't even know. It's just take every day like it's your last day and put everything into it that you can, because ultimately the outcome that you're looking for will be achieved.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, guys. So I want to say thank you for Chris Slaughter, Coach Brooke, Dave Padilla, all the department heads, John Hatton, Jeffrey Williams, Professor Charlotte Gurman, my program director, all the deans, Dean Sparks, David Herbert, everybody that made this possible. This is the first time, guys, so we apologize for any delays or any question that we couldn't answer, because, you know, we're talking for like an hour 40 minutes. So I think the first time was pretty good, and I want to just say thank you. John, anything? Last words?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think this was a great forum and would love to do it again.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me.
If anyone that wants information, our website, kucox.com, that's the staff directory page, email addresses, contact information, sports are listed. So that's a great place to get information if you're training.
All right, guys. So we finish. Good, Jeff?
Yeah,
Good.
guys, thank you guys very much. I really do appreciate it. You know,
Thank
taking some time today. I know you guys are busy.
Anytime, guys.
Bye.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
Ciao. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Ciao.